Welcome to The World Today. I'm Waqas Majeed Khan. Today we're talking about the unfortunate incident that took place in Kabul. 10 journalists among 37 people have been killed. The Afghan attacks are increasing day by day. They are under attack from the Taliban as well as the Daesh, which has now also established a foothold in Afghanistan. What is happening there? Is the Afghan government losing control? How are they going to take on the fight against ISIS, and especially the US role in Afghanistan vis-a-vis the Taliban? All these questions we'll be talking about in this program. Our second topic is regarding FATA and the mainstreaming of FATA. The Prime Minister has made a number of statements and promises to the people of FATA, saying that the basic necessities will be provided to the people of FATA on an urgent basis. We hope that the Prime Minister is able to keep his word and the people of FATA are mainstreamed sooner rather than later. We're still waiting for that. And of course, today is also May Day, so a happy May Day to all those who are working. Let's begin the conversation. I'd like to introduce my guest in the studio. Joining me for the moment, we have Brigadier Said Nazir Saab with us. Let's begin the conversation with him. Thank you very much, sir, for being here. Sir, a very unfortunate incident. You must have seen it on the TV screens and in the press has been reported. Life again has come to a standstill in Afghanistan. This time, the terrorists, ISIS, targeted journalists specifically. There were 3 attacks, 2 bomb attacks in which the journalists lost their lives, and then there was a single journalist who was targeted and he was shot dead. What do you think is the cause for targeting journalists at this point in time, sir?
Thank you indeed. As far as Afghanistan goes, of course, around its countryside as well as in the main cities and in the provincial capitals, this seesaw game is going on between the militants, the Taliban, the Daesh, as well as the government forces, and of course the American bombing. And in the whole process, the civil populace is the main casualty, and especially the children which was in the Kunduz, that madrasa attack. After that, the Kunduz have also changed hands many times, and so goes to the Helmand and there to the Kandahar. There also a convoy was ambushed by the Taliban. And now this Daesh element which has come and which has rather mushroomed now in Afghanistan, and especially in the western and northern Afghanistan they have reached. And this targeting of the India's locality, and the first blast took place, and of course that what were the casualties. But as soon as look at the way the things have been planned, it was a very well orchestrated, though a very gory incident, for the sense that naturally the first one to reach is the security people. The second is of course the rescue workers, and third is of course the media, which reaches there. So naturally these 3 are then the main targets of the second and the third blast, are the casualties which is taking place in the second blast. And probably that was the main purpose, to target the journalists as well as these rescue workers. Why this? Because once these journalists, especially they belong to the media and media houses, and plus they keep their banner high and they do commemorate and they do give those news. So they wanted to have a bigger propaganda platform, and that this incident, that this particular blast which has taken place, it could be broadcasted, it could be telecasted, it could be printed in various medias and print media as well, so that it gets a wide circulation. And their presence, that is the Daesh presence and the Daesh prowess and the Daesh strength, could be portrayed in that way. Though it is a negative portrayal, but at the same they wanted this way. So that's why it has taken place. And probably in such sort of occurrences, normally the SOP is that it is to be very carefully, the rescue workers are supposed to come, and then the proper cordon is supposed to take place by the security forces. Probably somehow or the other, many blasts has taken place especially in the city of Kabul, which is rather the center of gravity of Afghanistan, where the embassies are there, where the NATO headquarters is also there, and where the Bagram base is not yet too far. But these blasts are taking place. Somehow there is some, you can say, chinks in the armor of the the security agencies there as well. Because repeatedly it has been targeted, the ambulance bomb, then is this journalist coming in the journalist garb and then targeting these journalists.
Also,
Of
some of them
course,
appeared as doctors, sir.
yes, of course, the doctors as well. In the ambulance, of course, it was laden with the explosive material. So always this tactics will change, but one is supposed to be on guard because it is an ongoing war, and in the war, people, the armed forces and the security agencies and intelligence agencies do learn, but this learning is supposed to be put in place on the ground.
Well, sir, we've been joined by Shaukat Piracha Saab, senior journalist. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us. Piracha Saab, what would you like to say about the dastardly attack that took place in Afghanistan? And also, since they are your brothers in your profession, what would you like to say about the protection of journalists, especially when they're covering conflict zones? And what measures should be taken to protect the lives of journalists?
Thank you. It's a tragedy, whatever happened yesterday or what has been happening in Afghanistan over the last 40 years, and especially, in couple of months back, that there has been a series of violence. There has been series of violent attacks inside Afghanistan, from Kabul to all over the country. It's very sad. It should not happen. It should have never happened, earlier. As far as the attack on media person is concerned, Afghanistan has a young nascent media, and they need encouragement. They need patronage instead of attacks, bombs, and carnage. A very typical, well-planned attack that has been unleashed yesterday. If you remember, there was a terrorist attack on lawyers in Quetta, and when these dead bodies or the injured and the lawyer, they came to Quetta Civil Hospital, exactly that happened. That media was there and terrorists attacked over there, and so many media people, they lost their lives, including, a cameraman from Arch TV, which is my organization. We felt very sorry. We felt very sad about that event, and this has happened yesterday, that initially they had an attack somewhere, and when media was there, after 20 or odd minutes, they struck again. So, well-orchered, well-planned attack, and it's not an odd incident of violence. Rather, it was well-managed, well-planned, and it should never happen, as a Pakistani, as a countryman of a country where we also been seen and witnessed, and we've been victim of terrorism for over 15 years. Although our security forces, our army and our law enforcement agencies, they have broken the bone of terrorists, but still their remnants are sometimes visible in different cities of Pakistan, which is equally bad. Pakistan and Afghanistan, they have lived together over centuries, and now they are living equally under the siege of terrorists. Instead of blaming each other, there should have been cooperation between the two countries. If the terrorists can cooperate and they do not believe in territorial boundaries, why should, I'm afraid, the governments do not cooperate with each other for elimination of the scourge and menace of terrorism once for all?
Well, thank you very much for sharing your views with PTV World, Shaukat Piracha Saab. Well, coming back to the studio, we've also been joined by Rana Jawad Saab. He's the Bureau Chief of GEO. Thank you very much, Rana Saab, for being here. Rana Saab, we're talking about the unfortunate event that took place in the attack in Kabul. Over 10 journalists lost their lives, among other people, 37 people altogether. What would you like to say right now? What's happening in Afghanistan? Are the Taliban and the Daesh are in competition to see which one is the worst perpetrator of violence against humanity? What's going on there, sir?
I am personally grieved on what happened yesterday because I lost one of my friends in that attack, and it was very painful for me personally. And the more I think about it, the more I feel the pain that comes into my heart. Shah Marai was the chief photographer of AFP. I was also a correspondent of AFP, and we were together in Kabul. At that time in 2001, he drove me around in the streets of Kabul. He was a driver there. but he always wanted to be someone big. He always looked at us and said that one day I want to be a journalist. And he really worked very hard. He was a Tajik, he was a follower of Ahmad Shah Massoud. That was the time when Ahmad Shah Massoud was also attacked and he lost his life. And I saw him grieving in the office, and he was very attached to him. But he was a pleasant man, a wonderful human being, a great soul. And then he learned the art of photography, and hats off to AFP that they gave him the opportunity and he became their chief photographer. Now, you being a journalist will understand that a country like Afghanistan, which is war-torn, war-ravaged, in that place, if you have a chief photographer, he has to be exceptionally good. And Shah Maraya, a former driver of AFP, through his sheer hard work and endurance, became the chief photographer. And yesterday he lost his life. So, mindless killing, senseless killing, purposeless killing. Who to blame? Of course, this region, unfortunately, over a period of time has become a hub of all these militant activities, and it's the worst affected area in the history of world as far as terrorism is concerned. And if we blame Taliban and if we blame ISIS, we cannot ignore blaming our own policies which are responsible for this, which led to the creation of these groups. This was never an area like this. I don't know, I heard it from my father. In the 60s and the 70s, Pakistanis used to go to Kabul to enjoy their life there. There were theaters, there were cinemas. It was a bubbling, exciting country.
Progressive society.
It was a progressive society. Now, obviously, now we see remnants of the policies that the two countries pursued in 70s and 80s and the 90s. And the result is that ordinary people are killed. No one is safe, everyone is vulnerable there. Taliban became a political movement some time ago. They controlled a large swath of Afghanistan. In 2001, I was reporting there as a correspondent of AFP, and I got the opportunity to interact with the emerging at that time. And finally, they took over Kabul and they controlled a lot of Afghanistan. And then they were ousted in a war which was, to me, maybe to you it is clear, I am still confused what happened at that time. If someone had carried out the attacks on the Twin Towers, most unfortunate attacks, devastating attacks, then the policy should not have been to go for a collective punishment against a country. And then Pakistan also became entangled in that war. And because we were also pursuing similar policies, we also were pampering militancy and extremism at the state level at that time. So the result was that it became an ungovernable area, and now we see our friends losing their life, our near and dear ones. It's an everyday affair. So the presence of IS, the Daesh, the presence of Taliban militants, renegade Taliban, Taliban who believe in mass killings, Taliban who believe in vindicating themselves politically. It's an ongoing war. I mean, I find myself at a loss to describe who to blame. To my mind, the blame must be squarely on the successive governments that govern Afghanistan, squarely on those NATO forces under International Security Assistance Force, clear on the wrong policies, misplaced, manipulated policies of the West, and of course, our own country, which had now perhaps come to terms to deal with this threat of terrorism, but for a very long period of time, we were accused of harboring, sheltering militants who were.
We still are, sir.
I mean, obviously, the government denies it and the military denies it. The world says that you are doing it. The problem is that if we want to save our own people, a life lost in Afghanistan, a life lost in Afghanistan, a life lost in Pakistan carries the same value. If we start believing in it, and at the government level, at the institution level, at the security and military level, we start cooperating and with an open heart with no trust deficit, with commitment and with clarity
And pure
with
intentions.
openness, we can still deal with these merchants of deaths, because they don't see anyone, whether a journalist, a politician, a soldier, um, an Islamic scholar, an ethnic person. They don't see that. They just create terror, and it has been too long, my dear. It's been going too long. We really there is a full generation which is a victim of this.
And one of the important aspects of the attack, sir, is that the use of suicide bombers is become extremely common. Whether it's the Taliban or whether it's ISIS, they're both using the same modus operandi when it comes to causing so much damage. That in itself is against the principles of Islam, the religion on whose name they are carrying out these atrocities. How can they justify killing so many people, and then also the method that they use, suicide bombing? How is it justified in any religious or moral way, sir?
I think we have to look at the level of indoctrination that these people go through. We have hardly seen a 40-year-old suicide bomber. What we see is a 13-year-old, 15-year-old at a very tender age. There is a method to this madness, unfortunately. We can go on and debate on this, but there are sensitive areas involved in it. First of all, we have to accept that the indoctrination that were carried out, whatever good, bad, at one stage of life, at one stage of time, between the two countries, within the two countries, that indoctrination created itself its own industry, its own directors, its own beneficiaries, and now they are propagating it. And obviously, at one level, if you can recall, when the Soviet forces moved into Afghanistan, the University of Kansas in America published a booklet, which was, and that was distributed. One person told me 50,000 were distributed in different Muslim countries, and those booklets highlighted the virtues of jihad and made it and called upon the Muslims that it is mandatory on you to fight with whatever means you have. And then this was outsourced to various groups. They were financed, and so that process of indoctrination, extremism, militancy, and justifying suicide attacks, killing innocent human beings in the name of great religion of Islam, it got mixed up. Again, I mean, as a person, I say that we can obviously condemn, and we should condemn, and no religion allow that. Islam is the latest religion, is the best religion for many of us. How can it justify it? But it's not the problem. The problem is those people who indoctrinated these people and then created a full-fledged industry which got economic benefits, territorial benefits. Those minds have to be controlled, and they cannot be controlled in a counter argument of, I think, my belief is purely through religion means. I think you have to bring them into socio-economic order. You have to look up for their proper grooming. You have to separate that mindset which is completely indoctrinated from running madrasas, seminaries, mosques. You have to separate them so that the new breed that you produce is aware of the true sense of the religion. Otherwise, it is just, we can keep on debating, we can keep on trying, but we'll end up losing our friends and
Brigadier Sahab, moving forward, what does it say, what sort of a comment are the state of affairs in Afghanistan at the moment on the abilities of the Afghan government and the support of the NATO forces? They seem to be completely powerless in giving security to the people of Afghanistan. And if that's the case, do they have any legitimacy to be there in the first place, sir?
Of course, this is now a very big question being asked in Afghanistan by the people of the Afghan people, for the reason that this war has got prolonged beyond the limits, and it is devouring the society in the death and destruction. And it has become a quagmire from which neither the Afghan government, the Afghan people, or the Afghan army, or the NATO forces, or those who are calling the shots in Afghanistan, they can, you can say, shirk it, that will, it's not our responsibility, or the responsibility blame game is there. Of course, the unity government in Afghanistan is weak, but as Mr. Trump last year in August announced the Afghan, the South Asia policy, and of course Afghanistan was the center of that. So in that policy, he was for the continuation of the war. And as love begets love, violence begets violence. The war will never bring you a solution. The war will never bring you a peace. The peace is always on the table, which is being decided, whether that is First World War or Second World War or any war that take place. But somehow or the other, the forces in Afghanistan, that may be the external forces or their own government, is running and shy away from the dialogue. That is one aspect. And we have already seen 2 times the dialogue started, and it was sabotage.
Yes, sir.
So that was one thing. Second thing is that, well, the perpetrators of death, all are the perpetrators of death in Afghanistan. Because one, of course, the Twin Towers incident was a gory incident and it ought to be condemned. But it doesn't mean that you should punish country after country and country after country, and in that the Muslim countries are in the eye of the storms, and especially Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya, and Syria, and all this. Well, Taliban was a political force. It was a legitimate government, as Pakistan has already recognized that, and beside other. But what about Daesh? Daesh was inducted into Syria and Iraq by the West from 49 countries within 6 months, about 14 to 15,000 people, all modern educated. They were not from madrasas. Al-Baghdadi was in their green copper jail. So all these people, how come they came together with one ideology and with one strength, and then they started a war and controlling a swath of Iraq as well as Syria, and then they were selling oil and they were having all sorts of sophisticated weapons. For God's sake, whom they are befooling? For whom this destruction, this maiming of the people, these children which are being massacred, and this wrath is bringing. And we have already seen they have tried everything, these nukes. They have tried the biggest, the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan. So what is this? Is it the guinea pigs which are being in a laboratory, and they are testing all sort of sinews, all sorts of streets of war, all sort of equipment on them, how to kill them?
Seems to be the case, sir.
Yeah, that's what is supposed to be the case. So it is not only these warring factor non-state actors. These are the state actors also responsible, whether they are in Afghanistan or they are the extra-regional or they are the regional. So all are responsible in this.
Very unfortunate, sir, the way things are going. Another aspect of the attack on the journalist community, specifically Rana Saab, is also creating information black holes where you have no information coming out from areas which are hit by unprecedented violence. Is that also an intention in this case? Because we also find that the terrorists want their message to go forward or go further, and targeting journalists would actually be detrimental to their own cause. So how does that really make any sense, sir?
That's true. I mean, it is a dilemma to speak on this because we have been told and we have learned this, that terrorists pick up their targets which maximize their propaganda, which allow them to maximize their propaganda. For example, they will pick up, iconic things to launch their attack targets, so that they get the maximum value, and the value is given by the media. So when they attack media, and if there is a blackout about their attacks in the media, this will obviously counterproductive for any terrorist organization. But I think what we are witnessing in Afghanistan is a very unfortunate, very fluid situation in which there is power vacuums existing.
Do you think that the Afghan government and the NATO forces, specifically the Americans, have basically lost the plot in Afghanistan, and things are completely beyond their control now in the way things are
No, what
being
my
presented?
friend was telling was very interesting. He was alluding to the fact that the presence of IS in large swaths of area in Iraq and Syria, and volunteers from 40 countries merging on those areas, coming from all over the world and becoming a militant force, a lethal militant force to destabilize international peace. How can it be just a few individuals who could do that? What Europeans and Western countries have not learned from history, unfortunately, Al-Qaeda was a product of the failed or policies of the West, co-sponsored by Pakistan and Middle East, Saudi Arabia. We didn't learn the lessons. And then again, when Iraq came, the same mistake was made, and it led to the creation of IS. Now, in Afghanistan, I was reading an article recently that one of their national security advisors, their national security advisor, Hanif Atmar, I believe, is being accused of supporting Daesh, which to my mind is very strange and very frightful. Internationally, if you look at the presence pockets of Daesh, you find Afghanistan holding a major chunk. And why the NATO forces or the Afghan forces have failed to dislodge them is, of course, the fact that topography is very difficult. Yes, the American did drop a mother of all bomb, but many political commentators understand that that was not meant to wipe out IS. Rather, it was meant to send a message to Russia and China that, look, we are so close to you and we have this kind of weaponry. So, this was a kind of a messaging to the other countries, regional powers, rather than going after the IS strongholds. But obviously, terrorism is unlike insurgency. Taliban in Afghanistan are engaged in insurgency. Terrorism is a crime related issue, because a terrorist targets are not well defined. Insurgent targets are well defined. They just want to create terror. So, unless you have a proper functional military, proper functional intelligence, proper functional policing, proper functional judiciary, proper functional civil armed forces, you cannot deal with the with this act of terrorism. Pakistan has succeeded in managing to bring down the intensity of terror attacks, because Pakistan is a functional country in many ways. It has a robust army, it has active judiciary, it has well defined police structures, it has lower court system, it has prosecution, and it has a very elaborate police system at the local grassroots level. So, Afghanistan issue is that they don't have these developed institutions. Because of the war for 40 years in their country, everything is lost there. So, therefore, you find pockets where you can survive, where you can regroup, and then you will always find regional interest helping you in one way or the other. You become a tool, like Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is a known terror organization. It is sitting in Afghanistan. It is carrying out attacks inside Pakistan. And Pakistani intelligence, Pakistani government, Pakistani foreign ministry say that those terrorists are funded by Indian intelligence agency. So, what I am trying to say is that when these terror groups come into being, then they find their sponsors, and hostile warfare becomes a kind of a boon to them, and then they gather money, and then they do something for their masters who pay them, and then they something to achieve their own ends. So, unfortunately, in Afghanistan the problem is way too complex. Unless and until the international community genuinely seek a legitimate government. He was absolutely right. When Taliban were ousted, Taliban continued their insurgency, and since 2001 you can see that until now they are holding on to their position of strength. For example, take Helmand, take Zabul, take Paktika, Logar, Khost, in between that, Kunad, Nuristan. This belt, south, east, west belt, it is still virtually under the control of Taliban. So, any wise government will now
Seek a
have
political
to seek
solution.
a political solution, bring them on to negotiate. Is absolutely right. Unless you do that, you have very little hope to develop your institution to fight with organization like Daesh and various other militant groups.
Absolutely, sir. A very unfortunate situation, and we hope that the rest of the international community wakes up to the plight of the Afghans, where they're losing their lives for no reason at all. And we hope and we pray that the collective conscience of this world wakes up to their plight. So let's move on to our second topic, which is equally important for us, and that is the mainstreaming of FATA. And Brigadier Saab, I'll start with you. We've been having a number of shows on the FATA reforms previously as well. It's been quite some time, sir. We're still not there. Where do you think the stumbling blocks are now? Because the Prime Minister says that FATA must be given its due shares. It must be brought into the mainstream of Pakistan for Pakistan's survival, for its existential threats that Pakistan is facing on so many levels. So we've been talking about mainstreaming FATA for far too long, and it's not happening. What do you think is the reason, sir?
Yes, of course, as far as FATA is concerned, it is our black hole. And it's our, you can say, buffer zone. And it is a launching pad and a gateway. It was the Wild West, and so many things it has been called. But you see the geography, you see the people of FATA, and you see the background and the surroundings of FATA. It was not the people of FATA, which is their fault that they are not being mainstream. It's not their fault that the war on terror is being fought on their soil. Every mountain and every valley and every ravine is, you can say, smelling, giving the smell of the gunpowder. That's not the fault of the people of FATA. The people of FATA want to be mainstream. The people of FATA wants the reform. The people of FATA are in dire need of it, but somehow or the other, the decision maker or the power corridors, they are not addressing the real issues, the real reforms agenda of the people of FATA. That's what they want. For it is a democracy, and called a democracy and a functional democracy. What they like for themselves, they don't want to be implemented or to be given to the people of FATA. Supports empowerment. Why not to have the people of FATA should be empowered? Number one. Second thing is that why they want to impose something on the people of FATA? Why not ask the people of FATA, like in a democratic way, what they want?
So are you suggesting a referendum, sir?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
And third is, they say FATA people have rendered maximum sacrifices, and they have been displaced, and they have been, you can say, their property had been destroyed, and they have been fighting even in Kashmir and the Azad Kashmir. We owe it to them, and they are sent. But what's it's come to the real terms? What the Pakistan or the Pakistan government has given them. Look at the budget. 24 billion was the last year budget, and 10 billion has been surrendered. And now this year also, not a penny is more than 24 billion. And then they say the FATA people, they have rendered sacrifices, and they are to be rehabilitated, and there should be reconciliation. Of course, but it must come on ground that the people of FATA should feel that there is somebody who is looking after them, that their sacrifices are being answered. And whatsoever sacrifices they have rendered, they should not be thrown to the wolves for more. Because this war in Afghanistan, which is there, it is directly affecting the people of FATA.
Right, sir.
And that's why we have also used all sort of ammunition in FATA. That may be the aircraft, or that may be the bigger platform, or the bigger bomb. We have also conducted all sort of that bombing. And of course, it doesn't distinguish between the friend and foe. There is a collateral damage. The displacement itself is a worse sort of trauma. The children from the last 16 years, they have grown up, and there is no education, there is no health, there is no people have lost their property, people have lost their business, and everything is being flattened by all warring factions. So when this nation, or when this country, or the power corridors will wake up to this particular fact, that we want to rebuild FATA, we want to reconstruct the FATA,
so is
and
it a
we
case
want to empower the people of FATA. Rather than imposing the decision, which is a counterproductive.
Well, there's confusion there as well, sir, because when we talk about the issue of FATA, then there are the Maliks there who are in favor of forming a separate province rather than merging it with KPK. Let's get Rana Saab's opinion
Let me
on
answer
the
on
politics
that
of
one,
that.
one aspect.
Please, sir.
Like a province, this is a common fact of the social or the governance of Pakistan, that the bigger provinces are difficult to manage, one. Then there is a monopoly of the bigger provinces. Third, there is, you can say, in the province itself, there are areas like the southern Punjab, which is deprived. It is in the KP, the southern KP, again it is deprived. So why not to have small provinces? And according to Article 1, FATA is a separate entity. It is not any part of any province. So why not to make it a province rather than making it a part of, you can say, a tail of the KP? So that is, I suppose, usurping the rights of the people of FATA by not giving them this democratic right that they should decide for themselves.
So you think that a referendum should be conducted?
Yes,
Rana Saab, what's your point of view when it comes to the mainstreaming of FATA? We've had this debate going on for many months now in all streams of the media. There are those who support the merger with KP, and then there are those who want to say that, okay, no, we need a separate province. What's your point of view, sir? Why is it being politicized, but the people of FATA are still suffering?
I mean, obviously, when you decide about my fate, I am the first person to be asked. I cannot, outsource this right to you or to anyone else. And my friend is absolutely right. He's on the dot. That it's about the people. Who decided this? I am neither against nor in favor of anything. All I want is that FATA is a story that illustrates the Pakistani state of affair. We have been unjust to them. We have been cruel to them. We have been exploiting those people. We have used them as our like colonial imperialists would do other nations. They were part of us. They are part of us. And whatever political decision you take now, first, it is already too late. Second, why there is this debate? Why there was no question directly asked from the people of FATA? Now, I know one of my very close friends is running this campaign of integration of FATA with KP, and Maulana Fazlur Rahman and Achakzai is having a different idea. My issue is that for too long we have abused FATA region for multiple. It's not just about militancy, my dear. It's about money also.
Yes.
Pakistan's parallel economy run by Balochistan B areas and this Wild West. And there again, it's a full-fledged, it's a beneficial work, and people have gotten very rich out of this. I'm sure he would know that the rate of a political agent is beyond your imagination there. So the point is that we have missed the bus, we have lost the opportunity, and if we want to rectify it, we need to go back to the people of FATA. We need to ask them what do they think, what is their choice. And it's not about Maliks and Mashirans and their duly nominated
Political agents.
Political agents. It's about the people. You know what we have done? This Pashtun Tahaffuz movement in many ways reflects the vacuum that state criminally left there. It was a criminal act on the part of the state. Criminal act. Somebody should hold them accountable for this. Remember when war in Afghanistan came after 2001 9/11 attacks, President Bush of America came to Islamabad and he made an announcement, reconstruction zone. That was a good idea actually. What happened to them? Is there anyone holding any other person accountable.
So what were you
Where
talking about?
Where is Pervez Musharraf?
Rana Sahib, we're talking in the backdrop of the Prime Minister and the Chief of Army Staff's visit very recently to North Waziristan, and they inaugurated.
The wounds are very deep, my dear.
They
The wounds are very
inaugurated
deep.
a shopping area, a
Unless you
bazaar,
understand this.
and some other small facilities for the people of Miran Shah were announced by the Prime Minister. Now, we're still at that point, sir. Why have we not been able to come to terms with the debate whether FATA is going to be a separate province or whether it's going to be...
For the simple reason, because we are, honestly, because what we have done is that six of us sit and decide about the fate of, 5.6 million people. How can you do it? How can you do it?
So why is the referendum not being held, sir? Why is it that
two things.
The will of the people of FATA, why is it not understood? Because we've had a number of people coming and saying, in fact, number of people from FATA, young leaders from FATA who have come and sat in this very studio and said that they want to be a part of Pakistan, of mainstream Pakistan, and they want to be a part of KPK because it's a natural extension of the same landmass. The same people speak the same language. So it makes sense for them to be a part of the same system.
I agree with you, but the point is that the political representation from those areas is owned by certain political parties. So what is my yardstick to judge what people want? Why do we have elections? Election is the biggest manifestation of what people want. After the election, me and you can say anything, but it will not be reflective of the popular will. So therefore, either the parliament represents Pakistan. Why? Because it represents the will of the people, how they were voted into power by Pakistanis, right? So their decision is binding on us. Over there, the political parties who have majority of seats there, they should be seen to be reflecting the will of the people there, right? And correct me if I am wrong, Jamiat Ulama Islam is one of the largest there. So if they are raising a point, listen to them, address to their concerns, and find a way. Because if you don't do it now, I think it's already late, by the way. But maybe there is still a way to deal with it. If you don't do it now, then it will become irreversible. And if you look at the Pakistan as a whole, in Punjab, you want administrative units separate, new provinces. Why? In Sindh, there are demands for new provinces. In KP, there is a full-fledged movement to have another independent.
It seems to be a common refrain, sir, that's emanating from various corners of Pakistan.
So, my dear, it's within our hands. Either we can wrap it up under the carpet, make cosmetic announcements, do something that will please few individuals, and then leave the rest to the history to judge whether it was right or wrong. Don't do that. Do it the right way.
I suppose Rana, what points he has read, and I may have referred to this Pashtun Tahaffuz movement. Look, why such sort of movements comes into play and surfaces. Because there is a vacuum. There is something simmering in that area. There is some tectonic plates which are not in coincidence, but there is a clash. And it was there from the last about 2 and 3 years. We were watching it and we were having some sort of clues of that it will occur. Because 16 years is too much a time that you put the people into all this mess where everybody is killing, everybody is displacing other, everybody is after the life and property and his easiness or his comfort. So whatsoever has happened there, so for God's sake, it is part of Pakistan. Treat them as Pakistanis. Give them the same right as other Pakistanis are enjoying. So, and give them look, it is a war-torn zone. It has been destructed to the maximum limits, because basically conventional war in an area is a destructive machine, and the destructive machines leaves nothing on ground. So there should be a Marshall Plan. They have promised about 90 billion from the divisible pool. It has not been given. So whatsoever they are doing, these cosmetics which are taking place, it is not going to work, my dear sir.
I don't know.
You ought to be on ground and address these young people.
I don't know
Once
whether
you
I
do
should say it or not.
There will be something big and people are waiting for it. There are people, extra-regional
So I hope
forces,
that
they
the
will
powers that be
exploit
are
it.
heeding your warnings.
There-
I really sincerely hope that
no,
you're...
there are people who are watching this, rather aiding this and lurking for this moment that when it will occur. Because then the things come, you may be de-weaponizing, but the weapons will come in the helicopters. Like for the Daesh, it is coming in the helicopter in Afghanistan.
Rana Sahib,
So
one
please
last
No,
don't
just
take
comment,
quickly
sir.
one line. We ran and we know we are familiar with Thank You Rahil Sharif movement. I think this is time to say Thank You Pashtun movement.
All right,
Thank
sir.
you Pashtuns, thank you Pashtuns. They sacrificed a lot. They were displaced. They suffered the brunt of the war, right? So along with Thank You Rahil Sharif, we should say Thank You Pashtuns. for
But
your
more than just saying
sacrifices.
thank you, I think we should do what's required, sir, and rebuild FATA and bring them into the mainstream, make them feel as if they are citizens of Pakistan. I think that's the most important thing. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking out the time and sharing your views with PTV World. Well, before we end the program, we also would like to wish all the laborers working on Labor Day. It is the day that, ironically, is for them to take a rest. But as I was driving to work, I saw a number of laborers by the sides of the road still engaged in their daily labor, trying to earn their daily bread, while a number of people who live or work in high-rise buildings or air-conditioned offices are probably sleeping it off at home today. That's a thought for you to think about. On that note, it's goodbye.